Hey YouTube, this is City Prepping. I want to start off this video by wishing everyone a belated Happy New Year and Merry Christmas. I had planned on going into the office and sitting down and recording a couple of videos to wish everybody well. But what I've done over the last couple of weeks is I decided to just take a break. This past year, 2020, has been pretty hectic, pretty stressful. And I decided, you know what, just need to take a few weeks off, spend it with the family, and try to recoup and prepare for what I want to do with the channel in 2021. And it's been a really productive time to sit down and kind of think things through. Every year when I sit down and look at the channel, what I want to do with it, I have different ideas and different thoughts, but after the events of last year, it's been kind of a wake-up call for many, and the need to be prepared is greater than ever before. I did a poll just recently on my community tab of my channel, and I asked people what their experience or how long they've been prepping. And over 50% of them had just got into prepping within the last year. And so there's obviously going to be a shift toward prepping. People are obviously more concerned about getting ready. And there's just a lot of new people, that are coming in. In the past, prepping has been kind of relegated to the fringe, but as people are seeing how things can quickly change, things that we've talked about all the time in this community, how things can just change like that, it's been a wake-up call for a lot of people. When I was growing up, I was fortunate that I haven't seen major events. Well, let me rephrase that. I grew up in the 80s and, seeing the time during the whole, fight with the, Cold War with the communists, and then going into the events of September 11th in 2001, and watching the stock market crash in 2008, and then the events that played out last year, you quickly realize that things can change, and they can change quickly. And if you're not prepared for it, it can be pretty tough for you. So on saying that, and in light of the recent influx of people new to prepping, what I want to really do is begin to add an element to this channel in the coming year, or this year for that matter. We're now in 2021, where I begin to lay out the basics, the foundational principles of prepping in a very practical way. I've looked over my library recently on the channel, and I covered a lot of different things and in different ways, but nothing really consistently that takes them step by step by step. Building the foundations of water, of food, of medical, and laying out these things in a systematic way that if somebody was new to this, they could go through and watch these videos back to back to back, and based on their own budget, make a decision on how they're going to best prepare, whether they live in the country, suburbia like myself, or an apartment. I just want to give enough strong foundational information that people can build on, very solidly. And what I have found, this is personally, is that when you're prepared, it removes a lot of the anxiety and fear of the unknown, right? Because you're no longer having to worry about what if this happens. It's just like buying insurance. When you have car insurance, if there's an incident, you're covered. Without it, you're really on your own. And prepping that's how at least I view it to a large part, is that it's an insurance. It prepares you for whatever life may throw at you. We're in a very transitional time in our world's history, our nation's history, where the ability to take care of yourself is going to be more important than ever. I'm not advocating you go and live off in the woods and distance yourself from society. If you can do that, and if you've chosen to do that, that's great. I do plan, and I'll talk about this a little more in a minute, I do plan on adding a segment to my channel here soon, getting a piece of land, building a bug out location, building an off-grid environment. That's something down the road. But for now, I realize that, again, I live in a suburban environment, urban environment. Vast majority of Americans still do at the time they're recording this video. But, again, in the past, people have seen prepping as a fringe thing. But it's in my opinion, it's going to become very mainstream very soon. And I think you're going to see a large influx of people on all sides of the political spectrum. Again, 2020 was a wake-up call for many people. 2021 is already showing signs of challenges that we're going to face, whether we like it or not. I did a video, and I'll post a link up in the cards above, talking about the different challenges we'll face this year. I encourage you to go and watch that. But the thing that's kind of, I guess, on the forefront of my mind, the concern that I have, is the dollar, our monetary policy in America. Our economy has been our strength in our country. That's what America, among many things, has been known for. Our wealth, our ability to create wealth, freedom, the ability to let, the American dream, people go out and do whatever they want. And right now, we're seeing a lot of downward pressure on the dollar. We're printing money at unprecedented rates. in the last 4 years alone, you can look this up yourself, we've gone from 19 trillion to, I believe we're now 29 trillion in our national debt. And that's just what's on the records. Off books, they estimate closer to probably double that amount. So in saying that, the dollar is going to face a lot of challenges. It's already seeing it. And personally, I began back in July to start taking a position in Bitcoin, kind of at a level. And I'm about to go full throttle of shifting off the dollar over to cryptocurrency, primarily Bitcoin. Now, I am hesitant to say that in this video because I know a lot of people are going to listen to that and just run and say, well, I'm going to do the same. It's risky, and I realize that, and it could backfire, and I could lose a lot. But when I started looking and becoming financially literate, when I became financially literate, and I began to study the dollar, I began to realize it is, at this current time, it's in a really risky position. If we lose our status internationally as a reserve currency, it's going to be a challenging time for a lot of people. It's going to change our economy. And in saying that, just not the dollar. It's not just the dollar I'm concerned about. I believe in what we're already seeing is a lot of economic hardships for people like small businesses due to the pandemic and the lockdowns. A lot of people have lost a lot. People have lost jobs. I know a lot of people in my community here locally, some of the stories I'm listening to friends and family, they're going through hard times. And what you're beginning to see more and more is a massive wealth inequality being created. Now, when I say that, a lot of people kind of jump down the comment section. They're like, oh, you're a communist. What about let people make the money the way they want? Who cares if they're wealthy? That's not my issue. I'm just pointing out what's happening. If people get wealthy, great. I'm all happy for, I'm completely happy for anybody that can find ways to make money. But I believe I was reading an article between Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk. They've already accrued over $1 trillion in basically their own assets this year due to a lot of the events. And again, when I study books on investing, it's always interesting. They point out how every time there's a dip, everything goes on sale, and the wealthy just become richer and the poor become poor. And it's, again, I typically don't like to entertain conspiracy or fringe ideas, conspiracy theories, but when you begin to look at the recurring patterns that we're seeing over and over and over in our society, and that seem to be escalating more and more, is that you're seeing this shift where the wealthy are only becoming wealthier and the poor are only becoming poor. Now, I don't have to tell you what that will ultimately end up resulting in. Historically, if you look at countries where that became the norm, it rarely ended well. So I'm only bringing this up again, not to try to go on some string of ideas about, how do we overthrow the rich. That's not my concern. But I think, and I talked about this in my last video, and I'll post a link up above, I believe it's now more important than ever to become financially literate. If you can begin to understand how our system works and prepare and position yourself is where I'm looking for, it will do you well. Sorry, I keep rearranging my glasses. I know people always ask, is that a signal? Are you giving us Morse code or something? It's just, it slides on. I'm sorry. Okay. So, one of the other things is, again, we're going to see the pandemic rage on. We're going to see new mutations. We're already seeing that happen right now. You've, of course, probably seen the articles that have come out in the UK, Colorado, Southern California, where I'm at. We're now seeing more virulent strains of the coronavirus, and what that's going to end up doing, who knows, but it will continue probably to result in additional lockdowns and just dragging these economic challenges out. Again, one of the things I always try to be careful about with this channel is not to engage in discussions of politics, but you can't really observe what's happening right now and not point out that we will inevitably see, as we did last year, and it's already pretty clear we'll continue to see political unrest. The parties are becoming more and more divided. How you view that, what your political views are irrelevant. I tend to be very pragmatic. For me, it's irrelevant why these things are happening, unless I can make a change, and at this point, I don't really feel like I can. I always look at and try to answer the question, what can I do to position myself knowing this? And again, we'll talk about that a little more in a second. And well, actually, let me tie into that point right now, talking about what I'm going to be focusing on this year personally. And I've talked about this, I'll post a link up in the cards above to a video I did talking about the 5 immutable prepper laws for 2021. I would encourage you to go back and look at that. Kind of a recap of that is, I am going to be focusing more and more on my health this year. I'm in decent shape, but I realize I'm about 10 to 15, maybe 20 pounds over that I'd like to drop. I tend to work a lot. I sit a lot. I just bought a adjustable desk that stands. I can lift it. And I'm really going to invest in my own health. we're already seeing the hospitals down here in Southern California getting overloaded, the ICUs, the ORs having to put selective surgeries, they're having to delay them. And again, I used to be pre-med, I used to work in the hospitals. Triage is a term many of you know. When someone comes in, they're sick, they have to determine who's going to get priority status. And right now, a lot of our medical system is getting burnt out. So without going on a tangent on that, the point is get your health in line if you can. If you're overweight, out of shape, you've neglected your body, it's never too late to turn that around. Finances. Again, I would encourage people, become financially literate. I mentioned Bitcoin a second ago. I don't think that strategy is something that if you hear this video or watch it, that I would advise you to just go out and run out and start loading up on crypto. There are risks associated with it that you have to understand, but I think it's important that you understand how our monetary and fiscal policies work so you can determine, do you want to be tied to the dollar? I'll leave that decision up to you. The conclusion I've come to is no, I don't want to be tied to the dollar. The more and more I can move off of it, the better. I'm a big fan of Robert Kiyosaki. If you've watched him lately, I was kind of surprised. He's made a big shift and he's placed a lot of priority on crypto this year. And I'm sure it's paid off pretty well for him if he invested at the beginning of the year. He's probably doing pretty well. So again, I would encourage you to study that. And, again, we'll be talking a lot about that on the channel. Gardening. I started on it this spring, went pretty poorly, and I plan on, beginning to focus on that more and more. I'm going to be tearing up my side yard on the side of my property, side of my house. I've got an 8,000 square foot yard. I've got a typical suburban environment, and I'm going to tear that up and really focus on building out gardens. And a lot of times people say, well, if you live in the city or suburban environment, why garden? It's a waste of time. If something happens, your neighbors, and I've heard all the stories. There's several things I'd like to say to counter that. Number one, anytime you develop a skill, that skill can be carried anywhere. I purposely, I realize the garden on the side of our house won't support my entire family if the grid went down, but it would be an awesome supplement. And the most important thing is I'm developing a skill. And when I get land, this is my next point, is land. I plan on picking up land. When, I don't know. I'm been on the fence about it. Land in our area where I live is extremely high. It's way overpriced. And I'm not comfortable jumping in and buying at the top of the market. I don't have a crystal ball. When I talk to realtors, again, their response always is, well, it's going to continue to climb. The cost will go up. Maybe. But again, I had friends that were realtors in '07, and they were saying the same thing. We saw how that played out. It definitely feels like a bubble. So am I going to be right or wrong? Maybe we'll look back at the end of this year and look back at this video and say, well, you're wrong. It did continue to climb. And if that's the case, great. But I'm trying to position myself that if it does take a dive, I'll be in a position where I can begin to buy land. And my hope is to get, anywhere around 10 to 20 acres, somewhere within about 30 to 45 minute drive. And again, I'll be focusing on building my preps, and I'll be sharing my journey on this channel this year. You can't really tell by looking, but behind me and all around me, I've got gear. I've been building out a YouTube studio, and I'll be working on this over the next couple of weeks. I want to set up a professional studio. I'm going to do all I can to invest in sharing information, knowledge. I've built a team on this channel, and I've taken the money that I've picked up from sponsors and ad revenue, and I've reinvested it into the channel to make it so that I can hopefully share more and more in the coming year and this year. So I'd be curious to hear your thoughts, your feedback. I know this video is a lot different than a typical video I do. I tried to stay on some certain points, but I just wanted to kind of give a quick video sharing what I'm anticipating, what I'm doing. I tend to be optimistic most of the time, but when I'm looking at this year, let me put it this way. I can see that we're going to face challenges. But again, if you're prepared, it makes the events that much easier to deal with. I know everybody has different reasons they prep, different things they're concerned about, what they think is coming down the pipe, so to speak. But whatever it is, prepare. And whenever that event occurs, you'll be ready. So again, love your feedback and thoughts. Happy New Year. Let's get ready. Let's prepare for this year. And whatever it may throw at us, we'll be ready, right? As always, stay safe out there.